Dun, bum, 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 bum. So you had a good weekend, but we'll talk about that on the show.
Okay.
Because you teased it last week, so we have to pay it off this week.
I did, and I delivered it on my Twitter the next day, but I couldn't help it.
Oh, we can't tell anybody till Friday. Oh, next day.
Hey, once the promoter puts it out there, it's fair game. They told me not to say anything until they released it. So they told me it was going to be on Friday. They decided to go a day early.
That's all right.
But didn't I tell you it was a worthwhile announcement?
Yeah. Just gave me another day to be jealous. We have 5 voicemails this week.
Jesus Christ.
They aren't all from Sal, don't worry.
Oh. Yeah, we had like 70 guys in the locker room. It was ridiculous.
Well, for a show like that, you want to.
Yeah. Well, that's because everybody's like, "Oh, can I?" The weirdest part was some of the people who we had asked who said they couldn't do it because they were doing Beyond.
Showed up anyways.
Well, which was fine. You know, no big deal. You already booked for Beyond. You're booked for Beyond. But then JT shows up, and I'm like, "Isn't Beyond kind of your thing?" Like,
I don't know if I ever met JT Dunn.
Oh, really?
We're friends on Facebook because we have like 150 friends in common on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I've ever worked with him.
Huh. He's an okay guy. You know, he's probably one of the best in the area at marketing himself. So
yeah,
give him credit. Although guys are getting better about that in general. So
I'm gonna take a piss. I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's not put that on the show. I'm not sure if Adam forgot we were live when he announced that he was going to take a piss and then left me by myself. But for those of you watching live on Google Hangouts, if there are any of you, Adam's taking a piss. And this is the kind of classy, highbrow program that we like to put forth every week. You know, and start the show, and then the host leaves to take a piss and announces it very publicly. That is what the rundown is all about, folks. Five voicemails. Yep. I ate way too much Chinese food.
Okay, I'm sure that was fun for the viewers.
I talked to them a little bit, you know, since the host basically turned on the live feed and then went, "Hey, I'm taking a piss."
I should have.
It's a thing that happened.
All right. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay, then let's begin.
Usually I'm a coffee in by now. I'm still working on it because I just got home late. So I haven't gotten to the beer yet. So I don't know. No idea what quality we're going to get. We'll find out.
Maybe we should wait till tomorrow.
I expect to get to the beer about halfway through. So we'll see.
Okay. This is 252 in 3, 2, 1, record. With more preparation than Dean Ambrose's title win at Money in the Bank, this is episode 252 of The Rundown. Play the theme song.
I don't have it.
Who is Ashley Lynn and why are we fucking her?
Oh, we're not fucking her. You didn't see this whole thing? It's like this whole big controversy from Raw.
I somehow missed that. I guess we'll have to talk about it.
It's on my list, so since you didn't see it. Although, did you see that thing that Sal sent us in Twitter?
I didn't
like
click through to
Tommy
it. I
sent
saw
us-
what it was, but I didn't click through
It's
to
like
it.
this video, and like half the things I had noticed on Raw and had written down in my notes were in there. I'm like, you bastard.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam. I'm your host, and it is Wednesday, June 29th, 2016. As I said, this is episode 252 of the Rundown. So Jason.
Yes.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty epic, actually.
Did you do anything fun? Did you go to the beach?
I did not go to the beach. No, I did not go to the beach. No.
What'd you do? What'd you do this weekend?
Well, I actually was part of the historic first live professional wrestling show to take place in Fenway Park since 1969.
What?
Yes. It was a special part of the El Mundo Latin Family Festival that took place there this weekend. We were several wrestlers from different local promotions were invited to participate in a Belltime Club production in association with Dante Luna, who's a phenomenal artist and videographer. Some people might have seen he did a documentary on the Belltime Club, which has been floated around Facebook. But they put that on together. They asked me to be a part of it. I was pretty much running guerrilla for the first half of the show. And then the second half of the show, I took over and ring announced. So we got a little bit, gave a bunch of different people a chance to do things, be a part of the show, and I had a good time. It was pretty goddamn cool. One of the finest collections of talent. We've had I think I mentioned we had almost 70 guys in the locker room. Some of the top women in the area. It was just really cool thing. The ambiance, the atmosphere, and surrounded by a group of people that were not wrestling fans coming into it. This wasn't like people coming to a wrestling show.
Right.
They were coming to the festival. We would take breaks in between the matches so they'd be allowed to circulate and but they kept coming back. And
nice.
To me, the coolest thing about it was putting on a wrestling show for a bunch of non-wrestling fans and maybe making a few new wrestling fans in the process. It was
nice,
awesome to be a part of.
I saw. I
apologize. Before I apologize, that was what I was hinting at last week on the show that I couldn't discuss. Partially because I didn't want Adam to kill himself on camera. But
yes, I was unable to go to that due to scheduling conflicts that would have created, given the 2-day heads up that we were given, or a 3-day heads up. But I've seen the 800,000 pictures on Facebook. I did enjoy Sean Feeney as Thor winning.
What are you talking about? That was Thor.
Whatever match that was.
That's the God of Thunder.
And Bo Douglas on Nesson was very cool to see. So
Big Bear too.
And Bear, yeah.
We had some great matches too. I mean, just the local guy. We had Bo Douglas and Jason Rumble took on Picture Perfect, one of the best young tag teams in the area.
Absolutely.
We had JT Dunn on the show. He was in a triple threat match with Flex Rumble Crunch, aka Sean Burke, and All Good Anthony Green.
Oh, God, I haven't looked for Sean Burke in forever.
Yeah, so that was tremendous. That was awesome. We had the closers, who are Hammer Tunis and Brad Hollister. They took on a team I've never seen before. And get this team, Adam. Slick Wagner Brown teaming up with Christian Casanova. There was one you don't see very often.
Nope.
Pretty goddamn cool. To one of my best friends in the business, and one of the kids who I am most happy for the success he's had.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a great card, top to bottom. Everyone was phenomenal. It was an amazing atmosphere, awesome venue. Could not have gone any better. It was an independent wrestling show. One of the things I was tasked with at the beginning was make sure we stay on time, because we had to really hit the times due to the other events that were going on the same day. We were supposed to end Final Bell at 3:15. I had the Final Bell go off at 3:20. So I would take that as a sign of victory.
Beautiful.
For an independent wrestling show. But yeah, no, everything was great. It was awesome. So many people came out, guys I haven't seen in a while, guys I haven't worked with in a while, some legends. We had Steve King and Damon Darkangelo, the Archangels. One probably, arguably, maybe not even arguably, the greatest tag team in New England history. And two great guys. They were there helping me out backstage. Jose Perez, one of the all-time greats in the area as well. Mm-hmm. So I can't sit here and give shout-outs and run through everybody because there were too many people.
There's
but
70
everybody
people.
Everybody was awesome. The women killed it. Everybody killed it, and it was awesome. I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, I had a bunch of those guys with me. We had a Lucky Pro show on Saturday, which is where I met Bushwhacker Luke. For those of you who follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and saw my picture with Bushwhacker Luke. Ha, Bill, very funny.
Yeah, Dan Terry still had the bad taste in his mouth from getting the stink face. I heard.
I bet. Jesus. Oh yes, I no longer live in a universe where I can state that I have never seen Bushwhacker Luke's ass, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. But that show went great. We only broke 2 ceiling tiles in the Maynard Elks Lodge, because that is a very low ceiling, even for the low ring, a very low ceiling.
Now you need to see Butch's ass, and then you can cross that entirely off your bucket list.
I need to say Butch's bush. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that too.
Yeah. And one of the ceiling tiles got broken in the very first match, so that was a good start to the night. But no, I had a great time. Had a great time in Maynard on Saturday. And yeah, Vern Vicala won half a picture perfect. He's the Liberty States, Lucky Pro heavyweight champion. Christian Casanova is the Liberty States heavyweight champion. He's actually going to be defending that title at a show. I think he said it was in New York. There's a promoter out of New York who asked him if he wanted to come by and defend the title, and he's up for that. And then if he still has the championship after that, he's going to come to Elkmania 3 in September and defend the title there as well. Nice. So I think that's the first promotion I've been a part of that actually, I guess it's not technically a traveling champion, but it works the same.
There you go.
So that's very cool. With that said,
one more thing, Adam.
Yes. Okay.
Couple more shout outs real quick because these guys busted their ass and it was awesome to see them. One of them I haven't seen in a while. Toto Loco and Warbeard Hansen main evented the show.
Yes.
I haven't seen Todd in forever, so that was awesome for me to get a chance to see him. And then
Hansen's a great guy. I love that guy.
Congratulate him on all his success. That was tremendous. And another guy who really should be signed by the WWE at this point. This guy is that good. Teddy Goods on the show. With the Devil's Reject, Brandon Webb, and those two tore the place down too. So just hats off to all those guys.
Yeah. Okay. Now we just have to link them all in the on Facebook when we put the episode up on Facebook, so they all can listen to it.
There you go.
See what nice things we're saying about them. Okay, we have to get to the voicemails because we have 5 voicemails this week.
We're not doing 5 Google Translates afterwards, are we?
We might have to. Speaking of which, he got all types of weed. You want to know what that means? Watch last week's YouTube episode where I read the Google Voice transcripts of the voicemails. If you watch this week's YouTube, you'll see me do the same thing. With that, let's go to my email here.
Were any of these voicemails coming to you from Fenway Park, where I worked a ring announced a wrestling show this past weekend?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Let's start. Oh, wait, is that one from last week? No, that's from last week, so I don't need that one. And
so we have 4.
So we have 3. Sorry, we have 3.
Well, that sounds way less.
I still had the 2 in there from last week. I forgot the 2. That's what the problem was. Okay, here we go. Here's the first one.
Hello, Adam. It's your grandmother, dear. Such a nice young man. Adam, when you're done with your computer television show, would you mind picking up a gallon of bread and a loaf of milk? Thank you, dear. Also, I was just watching Monday Night Raw, and I have to say, that gentleman named Rusev, oh, my stars and garters, he has made me feel something I haven't felt since your grandfather. Let's just say there have been stirrings. But anyway, I'll let you get back to your profane discourse, and I'm going to continue doing what I was doing before you called me. Thank you, dear.
I need to give my grandmother my personal number. I don't know how she got the rundown inbox, but I apologize for that.
Adam's grandma dropped it like a deuce.
Yeah, apparently. She has my number. I mean, I haven't changed it in about 3 years now, so I don't know what happened there.
Well, those rotary dial phones can be hard to operate while you're taking a shit. So,
I've been to her house. I don't remember her having a telephone in the bathroom. Maybe she's got one of those really long cords from the kitchen or something? I don't know.
she has one of those really long cords when I'm there.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway. On that note, loaf of milk, gallon of bread. Let's move on to the next one.
Oh, it's a loaf, all right.
Way out in Cincinnati, there was this fella I want to tell you about. Fella by the name of Dean Ambrose. At least that was the handle his loving parents gave him, but he never had much use for it himself. Mr. Ambrose, he called himself the Dude. Now, Dude, that's the name no one would self-apply where I come from. But then there was a lot about the Dude that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I only mention it because sometimes there's a man. I won't say a hero, because what's a hero? But sometimes there's a man. And I'm talking about the Dude here. Sometimes there's a man, well, he is a man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's the Dude in Cincinnati. And even if he's a crazy man, and the Dude was most certainly that, quite possibly the craziest man in the WWE, which would put him in the running for craziest worldwide. And sometimes there's a man. Sometimes there's a man. No, I lost my train of thought here. But oh hell, I done introduced him enough. He's actually not that great.
Oh, please have a toilet flushing. God damn it.
Thank you, Sam Elliott, I think is. What was the thing? Okay.
That happened.
That's a thing that happened.
So we should discuss that.
Yeah.
Apparently there's this dude named Dean Ambrose. That's what I got out of that.
And he's the craziest dude in the WWE. Okay. And now for your regularly scheduled voicemail.
I had all of these different topics I wanted to talk about involving Raw last night, whether it be Seth's opening promo or the thread throughout the night of teasing the addition of John Cena and AJ Styles into the triple threat match at Battleground. And, you know, I'm sure you guys will touch on those things, but what I really wanted to talk about was the recent interview given by Sandra Toffoloni on Talk is Jericho. Sandra is the sister of Nancy Benoit. And she described her relationship with Chris. She talked about how he was as a person and what kind of happened to him, and a lot of different things that she talked about involving the almost infinite number of people that he had lost leading up to Eddie's death. So it didn't start with Eddie, it almost ended with Eddie. You know, friends in the business that he had seen pass away. She talked about a constant state of bereavement. And then obviously Eddie's death hit him the hardest. The self-medicating that himself and Nancy were doing to try to cope and deal with life in general. And, you know, maybe it wasn't just a clear-cut steroids issue. Maybe it wasn't just a concussion issue. If you haven't listened to it, I definitely check it out. But she also talked about the murders themselves, and specifically what he had done to take his own life, and also, you know, kind of parallel that with the fact that he had referenced that he felt like the business was choking him. and that, his suicide and the manner in which he did it was poetic. Yeah, it's a really tough thing. And, a lot of us will mess around and joke about it because, that's what we do. But it's something you guys should really talk about. And I'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah. Now, have you heard that podcast yet, Adam?
I have not. I know that it exists. I have not listened to it.
Yeah, I just finished it actually a couple days ago. So kind of chilling in a lot of ways. Some of the stuff she said. We joke around like Sal said. We've I generally try to avoid it, but I know some other regular co-hosts joke around about that a lot, and it's a very, very dark story, and the things that she talks about, sometimes some of the details that we've never really heard before, and things that you don't think about in context. For example, apparently Chris killed Nancy on Friday, Daniel on Saturday, and then himself on Sunday, which means first off, Daniel had to spend an entire day alive living with his dead mother. And then Chris spent 2 full days living with his wife dead and 1 full day with his son dead before he killed himself in a manner that I guess the police described as requiring some degree of superhuman strength to do what he did to himself. Just horrible, horrible to listen to. On the other side, she goes into, at the earlier parts of the interview, she goes into some of the more human parts of her relationship with Chris. And she makes an interesting point, which is, it would be easy for me to sit here and say, yeah, F that guy. He killed my sister. He killed my nephew. But there were a lot of really good memories and good feelings with Chris. And she knows that the Chris she knew wasn't the guy that did this, that something was wrong, that nobody knew about. So it's another interesting thing she brought up that I hadn't heard before, because I really, you don't follow these things a whole lot after they happen, but apparently it was reported widely afterwards that Chris Benoit's son was autistic or had Fragile X syndrome.
Right.
Apparently that was not true at all.
Oh.
She said that was completely, and apparently she raised complete hell with the sheriff who had released that publicly and said, I have all these doctor's records and it never happened. If it had happened, then Chris would have been out there working for causes, and that's how he felt about his son.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of stuff in there that was worth checking out. A lot of interesting things that I hadn't heard. Stories, behind the scenes stuff of how Benoit and Sullivan having to work together during that whole period where Nancy had just left Kevin for Chris. And it's a really tremendous listen, even if you're not a fan of Jericho's podcast in general, and I know some people aren't. And I honestly only listened to it depending on the guest, but I stumbled across this one and thought it was worth a listen, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad Sal brought it up, because I didn't have it on my list, and I'm glad we got a chance to bring it to the attention of those who haven't heard it yet.
Now that we're all horribly depressed.
So Raw happened. That might make me more depressed, actually.
Let's throw a couple of dick jokes out there and try to get this thing kind of.
All right. Well, let's before we go to Raw, let's turn the tables and flip to another podcast, which I know you haven't heard because I just heard it today. It just came out today, and I know how far behind you are in your podcasts. But the newest edition of the Bret Hart podcast.
I don't listen to that one anyways.
Okay.
I'm not subscribed to that one, but I like the way you described it in the group text.
So, I didn't even touch on the first part. So the first part, he does this podcast with this guy, Nick Hausman, who runs WrestleZone Radio. And so it starts with those two and Brett's sons, Blade and God, what's the other one's name?
Braxton.
No, it starts with a B, but I forget it. In any event, they're talking about how their cat brought a squirrel into the house.
I don't know if anyone's going to get that reference I just made.
The squirrel was alive and started running around the house. They trapped the squirrel in the oven, and they were waiting for the exterminator to come to deal with the squirrel. It was trapped in the oven. Then
Brett decided to bake a cake and forgot the squirrel was in there.
This prompted Brett to go into a 10-minute diatribe on different ways you can murder squirrels. like 10 straight minutes on how to murder squirrels. This was the Bret
Okay.
Hart podcast. They then welcome on this week's guest, Hornswoggle. And one of the first questions Brett asks Hornswoggle is, how were you
Have you ever
influenced?
murdered a squirrel?
Yeah. No, how were you influenced by other midget wrestlers as you came up? And Hornswoggle, answers, I really watch other midget wrestlers. I never wanted to be a midget wrestler. I just wanted to be a wrestler. I was never really into the midget part of it, and I didn't really follow that. I was more into like the Attitude Era, blah, blah, blah. Which prompts Bret Hart to ask him if he knew or watched every midget wrestler ever. So have you ever heard of Sky? You ever see Sky Low? Like, well, I've heard of him, but I've never seen him because I never really watched the midget wrestlers. Well, what about Lord Littlebrook? Did you ever see him? Like, literally kept it's like he didn't hear a goddamn thing Hornswoggle said. And then the rest of the interview was just Brett telling stories. Somehow he got onto how he ended up with the pink and black tights. And I think Hornswoggle's entire contribution was the word, yeah. That was pretty much all he said the entire interview. It was a train wreck of a podcast, but entertaining as hell. So now we're a little palate cleanser in terms of podcasts. So now we can go to Raw.
As seems to be typical for Raw these days, I don't remember a lot of what happened. I remember we opened with
I
Seth.
know Ashley Lynn is a bitch.
Again, still don't know who that is. I know we opened with Seth talking about Roman's suspension, which you kind of called last week, saying that they're not going to kayfabe it. How could they kayfabe it?
Yeah.
What concerns me, though, and this just occurred to me this afternoon, and it's the impetus for my little lower third down here, is if Dean Ambrose loses the title back to Roman Reigns or to Seth Rollins at Breaking Ground, I'm gonna be fucking pissed.
he's gonna lose it on the NXT themed developmental show on the WWE Network.
Sorry, Battleground. Thank you.
There you
go. Battleground. Because that to me says, oh, Roman's getting suspended. We need to take the belt off him. Give it to Dean, and then when Roman comes back, we'll just give him the belt back.
Yeah,
I would not be a fan of that at all.
See, here's what I see happening, and I know we're gonna get to predictions for Battleground in a couple weeks, but just based on what I saw on Raw this week, it would not at all shock me. They were drawing Dean as defending Roman quite a bit, and they showed for the first time ever and completely out of the blue Stephanie hating Dean Ambrose being champion. I wouldn't be surprised if Battleground features the return of Triple H to help Roman Reigns win the championship back. Roman becomes your huge heel. He turns on Dean. That sets that thing up. And you go from there. Because Roman Reigns can't be a face anymore. You can't legitimately try to make him a face. You've got to turn him heel. And what better way to do it than have his best friend come out and defend him for the toughest time of his life. And then at the first chance he gets, his former best friend hits him in the head with a sledgehammer, aligns with one of his enemies, and takes his championship.
What does Rollins do after that, though?
Well, I don't think we're going to have all three of them on the same brand, so Rollins is going to have to go off to somebody else anyway. So,
well, it's impossible. Yeah, that makes sense. And as a follow-up to last week, you had said
this is also the same prediction I gave for the last pay-per-view in the bank that Triple H. But eventually, it's going to happen. So I'm going to keep throwing it out there as long as they keep working.
Someday the Balor Club is coming.
Exactly.
Except not because they dropped the trademark.
Right. Which means I have a T-shirt that I can just resell because it's no longer trademarked.
There you go. What the fuck was I going to say?
Ashley Lynn's.
Up to last week, update from last week, because we talked about Roman Reigns' suspension last week. Speculating on what had caused the suspension, you sent us an update to the host text saying it was.
I believe that was Troy, actually.
Oh, was it? It was Troy saying it was a fat burner. That's all that I know.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me.
Stacker 2.
Yeah.
That's a fucking throwback joke. I was not expecting that at all. But given who sent that joke, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I was trying to watch Raw while also exercising, and so I didn't pay attention to a lot of Raw. You said you have notes though.
I do have a few notes, yes. First, I think Ashley Lynn sucks, and she needs to make things right. You still don't get the referee.
Oh, that sign. That sign in the crowd. That's what, there we go.
Yes. Ashley Lynn lied and destroyed my family.
That's what it was. That's right.
Completely random sign, not related to anything to do with what was going on the product. It was during I think it was during the Dean Ambrose segment at the opening of the show. Apparently, security made them take the sign down, took the sign away from them. If you're actually interested in the story, Ryan Satin of ProWrestlingSheet.com kind of tracked down all the key players, got a hold of Ashley Lynn, spoke with her. So if you go to ProWrestlingSheet.com, cheap plug for them, you can find out all the info there. This guy used to be I think he used to be like an editor at TMZ, so he's good at tracking down the dirt. He did it again in this time in a short period of time. And so that you can get the story behind the Ashley Lynn ruined my family sign, which was very random and sparked quite a bit of controversy on the internet.
Okay.
Let's see, what else did we have from Raw? Let's see if I can run through it.
Now, what Sal mentioned is the running thread through the show about the possibility of John Cena and AJ Styles being added to the match. I felt that it was exactly painfully obvious that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
This was just setting up another Cena AJ match at Battleground.
Right.
Although they did have some fun with it. I thought the two matches were great. I thought Styles versus I can't remember. It was Rollins versus Cena, right? And Styles versus Ambrose. I thought those two were very good. I'd be perfectly fine with AJ Styles in a WWE title match again, but they have other feuds to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, the Stephanie McMahon this week actively hating Dean Ambrose as WWE champion
out of nowhere.
I'm getting tired of her. She's turning more often than the Big Show at this point, where she'll do good things and then the next week be a total utter cunt bag for no reason whatsoever.
Well, no, if you've noticed, when Shane's around, she's playing more of the good guy kind of role. And I think that's part of that storyline that's tying together. She's kind of putting on a mask for Shane, and then when Shane's not around, we kind of see more of the true colors of
and also her giving Shane shit for not being there this week when she wasn't fucking there last week.
Right, yeah. She was busy. Who was she hanging out with? I forget. There was like a big picture of her.
She was at some festival in Cannes.
Darius Rucker or some
Hootie
musician or something. I forget who it was, but I think it was some musician.
Brother Hootai.
Yes. There you go. But in any case, so we had Sasha Banks and Paige team up against Charlotte and Dana Brooke. A couple things from that match. First off, did you hear the complete lack of reaction to Sasha Banks? I know you were giving me shit the week before for being worried about her getting cooled off by keeping her completely off TV. I think you saw some of that last week on Raw. Just a little bit, a little cool down.
She'll get it back.
No reaction, and she will probably. But the point is, you didn't have to rebuild her. You could have gone with her and kept her hot, and still kept them separated. And they chose not to for whatever reason, because they don't. It's hard to sit here and say that they don't know what they're doing, because obviously they do. They're making millions of dollars, but at the same time, there are such obvious mistakes that they make that it makes it frustrating. But Paige and Sasha, friends out of nowhere now, didn't make a ton of sense to me. I was glad we got the tag match on Raw and that they're not going to bring it to the next pay-per-view, which was good. So it means we'll actually probably have a women's championship match on the pay-per-view. Dana is what Dana is. She's not ready for prime time as a wrestler, but she's fine as a valet. Her talking is actually entertaining at this point. She's kind of funny. I don't know if you caught the last the Money in the Bank pay-per-view when they were leaving after that, and she's yelling out, "I'm the best protege in the world!" So she's entertaining me with that. The Ric Flair strut, the whole. She's doing these little things that I find amusing, so I can get over the fact that she can't wrestle. When she can't put someone's foot on the ropes, that's a little bit more of a problem. But that's the thing. But yeah, so that was one of the things I had was Sasha's heat has definitely died down quite a bit.
Womp womp. Yeah, like I said, I think she'll bring it back, especially in this lead up to her title match. If it's at Breaking Ground, Battleground, I keep doing that. If it's at Battleground, if it's at SummerSlam, she and Charlotte have a history there, and I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, like I said, it's fine. It's just more work they created for themselves. They didn't need to.
Yeah, but we talked about the whole Paige thing last week in their confusing sudden friendship, where Paige was fighting in a #1 contenders match, got cheated out of the victory, and then Sasha just shows up and she's like, "Yay, you!"
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they don't know how to book the women. It's insane. At this point, I don't care who's right. They need to take Sarah Del Rey and let her just book the women's programs.
There you go.
Like, take it completely out of the hands of whoever the head. I forget the head writer's name on Raw, but take it completely out of his hands. Give it all to Sarah Del Rey. Say, this is your thing. Do it. And I think you'd see a definite turnaround because she knows how to book women's wrestling.
Let her book the women for both shows, since it seems like we're going to have a split women's roster after the.
Well, and I was thinking about something along those lines this week. Is when we do the split, I wonder if we're going to get better storylines, because currently there is a Raw head writer and a SmackDown head writer, and they're not the same person. So what you have is a guy on SmackDown who's trying to write what he thinks it should be, based off the storylines and stuff set in motion the previous Monday by a completely different writer with a completely different approach.
Right.
So I'm wondering if maybe once you get that split and they're only in charge of their people on their show, if we're going to see better storylines and better continuity.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, Stephanie McMahon did give an interview where she talked about how the brand split will lead to better storylines because they'll be able to tell longer stories, even though they'll still have 2 pay-per-views a month for some reason.
Well, each brand will only have 1, which is what you have now, realistically.
Yeah, but that's not longer stories. That's still, but anyway.
But that's the main reason why you have to have separate tag team titles and women's titles, because if you're going to have separate pay-per-views, then those pay-per-views can't not have any title matches.
Just don't bring back the Divas title, okay?
You can't make the champions compete 2 pay-per-views in a month. Apparently, there are stories. Yep, and we'll get and we talked about the Dean Ambrose segment. Apparently, they are no longer referring to Dean Ambrose as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion.
Yes,
now just WWE Champion, which of course has prompted people to speculate that means we are going to get the World Heavyweight Championship back, and we will in fact get 2 separate top champions, 1 on each show.
Hopefully, not the big gold belt though. I'm
I heard a report today that there were people who have seen the design for the new belt and do not like it.
Do not like it. Okay.
Said it's not very good. But the silver lining to that is at least that if it's a new design, that means it's not the big gold belt.
Yeah. Also means it's not the Winged Eagle, but you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm still holding out hope. You know, they're all unconfirmed reports at this point, so who knows? But
right.
But that was an interesting note. Again, of course, now Dean Ambrose, just the WWE champion, so his title lineage will now go back to that title, I guess.
Also of note, for some reason, apparently with this brand split, we don't have general managers anymore.
Yeah.
Each brand is going to have its own chief operating officer.
Which, if you don't recall, is actually Triple H's on-air title.
Exactly. So each brand, it's going to be its own company now that has its own executives?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have the COO of SmackDown, the COO of Raw, and then Triple H is technically the COO of WWE. So I guess you can.
Does that make William Regal the COO of NXT?
There you go. Yeah, but of course, Triple H is not actually the COO of the company. It's just an on-air title. But again, the more we get into it, the more I'm convinced absolutely that whoever is going to be running SmackDown is not going to be one of the McMahon spawns, for a lot of different reasons that I've touched on in the past. But you keep hearing this notion of Stephanie, well, I'm going to run Raw with Shane and then SmackDown by myself, and that doesn't make any sense at all. So the prevailing thought is clearly that Stephanie and Shane are going to continue to run Raw together to build towards some type of a story with those two for control. And that means that somebody else has to be running SmackDown. My money is still on one of the people we talked about: Sting, Daniel Bryan, Kurt Angle, or Triple H.
According to reports, WWE officials confirmed that Angle is not returning to the company.
To the ring.
Okay, I heard the company, based on the report that I read.
Well, they both keep telling different stories because Angle then came out after that and said, "Oh, well, we had talked. It's not official
yeah.
yet."
So
But...
while no deal is in place, he'd had conversations with Triple H. But according to WWE officials, Angle is not returning to WWE. So that's still, as most of the things we talk about are, completely fucking God knows what. I thought Angle was a great GM when he was the GM of SmackDown. I thought he did a great job. I'm still deep down in my heart rooting for Mike Adamle, but sadly that I don't think that's going to happen.
To get AIDS and die.
Hey, rude.
Just kidding. Sort of. No, I want Mike Adamle to live a long and healthy, productive life, nowhere near a WWE television camera.
Yeah. So, like you said,
unless he brings back Jeff Harvey. If he brings back Jeff Harvey, then I can get on board.
You're making me crazy. Yeah, we still haven't seen Eric Bischoff. I did read a thing this week showing us about how Eric had basically no creative control in the documentary that WWE is producing about him.
Yeah.
But then he saw, what special was it? He saw some other special that they had done and realized that okay, I think I have faith in them to do this. But now I can't remember what the other special was. Great reporting. But anywho.
So also on Raw, we had Titus O'Neil and Rusev once again one-on-one.
Yeah.
Did you see that match, Adam?
I vaguely recall that happening.
So for those of you who didn't see it or don't recall it, it's easily forgettable.
Yeah.
They did
I may have blacked out during it.
The way it ended was they did a spot on the floor where both guys were on the floor. The referee's counting, gets to about 8. Titus whips Rusev over into the announcers section, the timekeepers area there, and then rolls himself in to beat the count and wins by count out and celebrates like Daniel Bryan at fucking WrestleMania in New Orleans. But it was kind of weird to me because it was a really chicken shit way to win a match for a guy who's supposed to be the face in this feud. And the celebration seemed way over the top for a guy who's supposed to be the face to win, who won a match that way. I didn't understand that at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was, like you said, completely forgettable. You reminded me why I tweeted, oh yay, a count out. But yeah,
JBL acting like it put him in line for a WWE championship match. Like
it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't forward any story. Yeah, he's got a victory, but it's a shitty fucking victory.
Yeah, it was like really chicken shit way to win a match especially for a face.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I was gonna,
the Social Outcasts were back on Raw.
Yeah, and that was one thing I was actually interested in, was the return of the Jobbers to Monday Night Raw. Enzo and Cass took on 2 guys who got no entrance, local guys, barely got their name mentioned, 14 seconds. And can we please stop...
Named after local minor league baseball players.
Yeah. Can we please stop calling this move the Boom Shakalaka? Or Bada Boom Shakalaka. Can we just call it the Bada Boom? I'd be okay with that.
Go back to calling it the Air Enzo. There was nothing wrong with the name Air Enzo.
I had no problem with the rocket launcher either. That was perfectly fine with me as well. But yeah, but then the Social Outcasts came out and had a fight about which one of them was hardest, which was, good dick jokes on Monday Night Raw. It's been a while since we've had those. So this is the
stomp in a glory hole.
This is the curse of Enzo and Cass at the moment. They are a very over face tag team in a tag team division full of faces.
Yeah.
So they have no real heels to work with. They've already beaten the crap out of the Vaudevillains. So it's the Social Outcasts for now until they get into the title picture, probably. And with the brand split and separate tag champs, that makes it more clear why we're seeing some of these other teams, such as Golden Truth and Breezango, put together, because you're going to have 2 tag team divisions to fill out. And I have a feeling Golden Truth will end up with a tag title reign on one of those programs at some point, just due to numbers.
We also had an Intercontinental title match.
Oh God! All right,
But
WWE.
they finally acknowledged the 30-day clause that no one has abided by for the last 20 fucking years.
All right, hold on. Come here, WWE. Let's have a little quiet moment here. Hold on. Let me do this here. WWE.
That's way too close.
This is my Nia Jax game. So here's the deal. Kane had a nice run. Kane was entertaining at one point. Kane has been able to pull off multiple different characters and aspects to his character. It's time to put him away. Take the toy. You've outgrown this toy. It's time to put it away. It's time to find new toys and play with those. Kane needs to be done. I don't want to see him on TV anymore. I don't want to see him wrestle. I certainly don't want to see him wrestle for championships. It's time to bury Kane. Okay, I'm done.
It was almost like the return of our old Dear WWE segment. I tweeted, gee, I think Kane has a shot here. No one ever.
The only thing that was redeeming in that match was Maurice Latot. Other than that,
even her involvement in the match was stupid. Like, oh, here's my fake ankle injury.
I thought he had used the force on her. I thought he had like force injured her or something.
Yeah, so she just falls over.
Yeah. Acting.
Yeah.
That old John Lovitz bit from Saturday Night Live.
Yes,
acting.
The thespian or whatever it was called.
It is horrible. Like it's just, and the Miz is too good at this point to be wasting on shit like that. Seriously. Yeah. And the way they built it up, of course, got everyone's hopes up. Oh, it's a mystery guy, and like maybe it's Finn Balor, maybe it's maybe they're gonna hotshot Finn Balor before the draft. Nothing. Just fucking Kane.
Yep.
I would have taken the gobbledygooker over Kane. Fuck Kane at this point. I honestly, Kane's not. First off, and you can watch the guy's performance. He can't do much anymore. He's fairly limited in there, understandably so. The guy destroyed. I personally blame him for Seth Rollins missing so much time because fuck him for being so fat. But just no more Kane. Kane needs to go away.
We also had a Talk is Jericho.
Love that. Yes.
Segment. Fuck, I just completely forgot the name of his highlight reel with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens that set up a singles match at Battleground finally.
They've had a singles match before.
My favorite part of that entire segment was not Sami Zayn. It was not Kevin Owens. It was Chris Jericho nodding smugly when Owens was talking to him about being a bad friend.
I like the part when he looked at Owens and said, "They're telling you to grow a set." Segment was great. I thought Jericho added to it.
Yeah.
I think my personal favorite part. Kevin Owens is such a brilliant fucking old school heel in the way he conducts his business. Yeah. He went out there and legitimately made you believe that he has a right to be pissed at Sami Zayn for not congratulating him for stealing his fucking title from him. Like, that is old school heel shit right there. And he delivered it in a way that you believed that this guy 100% believes what he's saying is the truth. And it's so ridiculous that you can't understand how he believes it. Brilliant work by Kevin Owens.
So much. He follows me on Twitter now.
And Jericho with the drink it in thing was just out of nowhere, the way he delivers it. Like,
so your son is apparently a fan of that as well.
Yes, he is.
So what you told me last week.
Yes. My son is taken up to telling us that he's giving us the gift of Jackson. Drink it in. That's a thing that happens at my house now. Thank you, Chris Jericho.
Awesome. I forgot what I was going to say again. Oh yeah, so Kevin Owens follows me on Twitter. Tyler Breeze has not followed me on Twitter yet. I asked them to follow the Rundown Twitter just so we could say that we're possibly the only podcast followed by Kevin Owens and Tyler Breeze, but he followed my personal account instead.
Why are you always downplaying Dr. Meat?
didn't say anything about Dr. Meat. You
Well,
said
that's my point. You're talking about all these guys that follow us. So we could say we're the only podcast followed by Kevin Owens. How about we're the only fucking podcast followed by Kevin Owens and Dr. Meat? How about that?
Except we're not followed by Kevin Owens because he followed my personal account, not the Rundown account like I asked him to. Either way.
Can't fucking listen to instructions either.
Glad to have donated
You should
to that.
tweet him and tell him that so he'll block you. Then you can be the only podcast host blocked by Kevin Owens.
I doubt that's true.
Did you see that whole bit with him in the restaurant? I don't think we touched on that on the podcast at all. A couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, but he tweeted out something for waiting for like way too long for food at a restaurant and going to another place that had a picture of Bret Hart on the menu.
Yeah, well, then the restaurant tweeted something that said, "Oh well, fuck you, we're John Cena fans anyway."
And he just
and
took
he
a
went
task for being assholes.
He went on like a radio interview and just eviscerated this place. It was great. If you can find it, I forget what podcast it was, but listen to it. Yeah. He just rips him a new one. So, but he's just great in general. I'm just a Kevin Owens mark. I don't know what to tell you.
Indeed.
What else? Well, we had the Seth Rollins and John Cena match, which these guys just have great chemistry in the ring. When Seth Rollins isn't breaking John Cena's fucking face open. But other than that, another great match. My only problem with this match, and it was the same problem I had with the Dean Ambrose AJ Styles match, and the same problem I had with the main event between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins the week before. Way too fucking predictable. I don't have to watch it to even know what's going to happen. You're not even trying anymore to surprise me or give me any reason to believe anything. And basically the two big matches you advertised on Raw both fucking ended the same exact way. Mm-hmm. But the in-ring work was great. I enjoyed the match itself.
Agreed. Also, look forward to SmackDown this week. Apparently Bubba Ray Dudley goes heel on The Rock's mom in the front row.
Nice.
He tweeted about that yesterday. Or maybe it was today. Either way. But he tweeted at The Rock, something had to go heel on a nice Samoan lady in the front row.
Did he go heel on her like in that ECW clip that was circulating Facebook a week ago?
I hope not, because I actually want to see it happen. I want them to air it on SmackDown. So
speaking of things that don't get aired on SmackDown, Natalya was on commentary for the Summer Rae and Becky Lynch kind of match.
Nice Owen Hart reference.
I was gonna say, and give a shout out to Natalya for the "Enough is enough" and "It's time for a change" line.
Indeed. I popped for that. I'm not gonna lie. I popped for that.
Hey, why not? Very nuggety of her. Yes, and of course the match never happened. Becky Lynch jumping her, and I kind of like this feud so far. It's being built slowly, but they're really kind of tearing into each other, and there's a believability to the fact that they're fucking just don't like each other, and that's missing all too often. It exists in this program, so I like it so far.
Yeah, and I think Natty will do well as a heel. I like that they're actually giving her something to do now, as opposed to being oh, hey, Natty's here too.
See, here's the problem with Natty as a heel. Natty can work as a heel. Natty can't talk as a heel. Even on Raw on commentary, she's like, "Okay, well, enough is enough, Michael. It's time for a change." Like she didn't sound like a heel. She sounded like a fucking Valley girl. Like I didn't like her with the Daughters of Destruction back with Beth Phoenix back in the day. I like Beth Phoenix. I like their work as a heel duo, but when she has to talk as a heel, she can't pull it off. She's too nicey nice.
I miss Beth Phoenix.
Well, she just had a second child with Edge. So.
She was so great. So great.
I was never a huge fan. Never did it for me. I was an Eve Torres fan.
Why do I even have you on this show?
Have you seen that body, Adam?
It's not just about looks, all right? Beth Phoenix can kick your ass.
I would pay extra for that.
And there we go, down the spiral. All right.
We had a tag team match we've been waiting for forever. Apollo Crews and Cesaro versus
the League of Nations.
Sorta, kinda. Who broke up again on this tag team match.
Yes. And they made no reference to it whatsoever.
I think they did at the very beginning of the
Did they?
match during Alberto's entrance. I think
I missed
Michael
it.
Cole made some reference to it. But yeah, are we going to? Are we spinning off now to an Alberto Del Rio versus Sheamus program? Because Alberto didn't really act like a face there, but
Right.
he kind of screwed the heel over. So I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if that's building to something. I wouldn't mind it because it would give Alberto something to do to rebuild himself a little bit. But in any event, that's a thing that happened on Raw as well. And now this thing was pointed out. I had made this in my notes, and then Sal sent us. I'm sorry to keep doing that. I get them so confused. Tommy sent us that little video clip on Twitter, and this guy happened to notice the same thing apparently that I noticed, which was, and I don't know if you caught this, Adam, but John Cena came out in that opening promo and talked about how it was the 14th year on Monday Night Raw. He had debuted 14 years ago on Raw.
Right.
SmackDown, I believe, against Kurt Angle.
SmackDown. Yeah.
But it was his birthday in the WWE. Essentially, he'd been there for 14 years at this point, which I found amusing right off the bat, given that the last pay-per-view was a match they were hyping between AJ Styles and that people have been waiting for 15 years to see. So apparently, people were really rooting for John Cena versus AJ Styles back when John Cena was the prototype in OVW.
Hey, you never know. You never know. People could have had inklings back then.
Mm-hmm.
Indie.
Or we just didn't pay attention to the continuity of our own storylines, which wouldn't be a shocker at
Yeah.
all. Now, here's the hot button issue. I say hot button because it got 3 responses in our thread, in our hosts thread this week.
Okay.
The New Day versus the Wyatts feud. What is your take, Adam?
I'm intrigued. I think I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority, but I'm intrigued. I understand what you guys were saying, where Xavier Woods is kind of the glue, the entertaining glue that holds the New Day together. But I'm still very intrigued as to where this goes. What happens with Xavier and what happens with the New Day if Xavier goes off and does something else. So I'm looking forward to whatever happens.
See, here's my problem. First off, for those of you who don't know, Bray Wyatt was pulled off of the tour of Japan due to some type of lingering issues with his injury. Of course, we still haven't seen him actually competing in the ring. He's only done his promos the last 2 weeks. I can't get excited about the New Day versus the Brown Snowman and Eric Rowan. I just can't do it. When the Wyatt family had Luke Harper to carry Eric Rowan a little bit in those tag matches, and they had some really great matches with the Usos.
Yeah.
That 2 out of 3 falls match they had on one pay-per-view I specifically remember as being really good.
Yep.
Luke Harper is the best worker in the Wyatt family. And Bray's good, but Luke Harper is top-notch in the ring, especially for a guy that size. Bray's not wrestling right now, and Brown Snowman just can't wrestle. And Eric Rowan is fair to Midland in the ring. So what is there to be excited about at the potential of, Kofi and Big E versus Strowman and Rowan? I don't get it. I just don't see it. I think you took the Wyatt family, who had the potential to be big faces for you after their turn right before the injury, and you've now kind of slipped them back into the heel role because New Day is so over. The Wyatts can't help but be heels in this situation. And I think you've taken the most charismatic part of the New Day in Xavier Woods and kind of neutered his charisma in order to have him play this weird trance-like state whenever Bray comes around. And he didn't want to be doing this, yet he got himself into full Luke Harper gear. It just didn't make any goddamn sense why they're doing this.
I don't know. I have an open mind about it. I've bitched about enough things in the past on this show that once they actually come to fruition, I've been perfectly okay with that. I'm trying to keep an open mind, and I'm trying to not immediately shit on things. But I'm still intrigued. I want to see where this goes, and I want to see what happens with Xavier and what happens with the New Day.
But I guess here's the thing, Adam. Like where, let's say this goes to a best case scenario. What is your best case scenario with this feud as a result? What the end result of this feud?
That's the thing. I don't know.
That's the
I
thing.
want-
There is none. There's nothing you gain for either one of these teams as a result of this feud. Nobody is better in a better place after this feud's over. Xavier Woods. So what, you break him off as part of the Wyatt family? Is he better with the Wyatt family or the New Day? Fucking New Day, obviously. He's not going to be any better taking away the one thing that makes him special in that his mic skills and his charisma. And you're not going to let him outshine Bray on the mic if he's part of the Wyatt family, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So he's not any better. New Day's not any better because they lose their most charismatic member, and their charisma is what's got them over. The Wyatts are now back to being heels and have tag team titles for two guys who can't wrestle that get to defend them every month. Like, nobody leaves this feud in a better place. That's why I don't get it. At least if it's the Bullet Club, you can make a case that, okay, they beat the New Day. Now all of a sudden they're legitimate tag team champions. You got big monster heels. The club is like, there's an advantage to that. There's a positive ending to that. I don't see any positive ending that can come out of the New Day versus the Wyatts.
I'm sorry that I'm willing to give it a shot.
I know it's perfectly okay. I'm trying to play out a scenario, any possible scenario that makes this feud good, and I can't find one. That's why I was curious if you had an idea of what the there is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's Brown Snowman instead of Luke Harper, and I understand that, and I miss Luke Harper. I wish Luke Harper was around. But I have been saying that the Wyatt family should have been tag team champions since that feud with the Usos.
Sure.
And I'm okay with it being Snowman and Rowan. Roman.
That means more Strowman in the ring, right?
We haven't seen him wrestle in a while. He could be better now.
Like, they're perfectly good as heavies and bodyguards for Bray. I have no problem with them in that role. They do that role well. Are they of the caliber to be tag team champions? Wouldn't you be better off if you're going to do a quote-unquote face versus face program with the New Day to just give it to Enzo and Cass?
I just want to see where it goes. Get off my ass!
It's going to go to a shitty match. That's the thing. That's where it's going to go. Like, we're at best case scenario, we're getting Strowman and Rowan versus New Day, and I just don't. I have no interest in seeing that at all, especially not 2 pay-per-views in a row, which we're likely to get because you never have a one-off pay-per-view match anymore. It's always a rematch at the next show, which means that's probably your SummerSlam program too.
Agree to disagree. We should be used to that by now.
Yeah, well, that's the story of my life. What can I tell you?
We've got some more for your conspiracy theory here.
Okay.
Apparently, WWE contacted Cody Rhodes for a deal similar to a Legends contract that would allow the company to release merchandise and other items. Basically trying to still be able to release upcoming action figures through Mattel. No talk of Rhodes returning as a full-time performer. Already booking several independent appearances, including Lowell in September, which I wish I could go to, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. And already has representation for a possible acting work in Hollywood.
Yeah, that sounds like a good gimmick for a character on SmackDown, doesn't it? Cody Rhodes, the dashing, debonair Hollywood star. That sounds like something that might be marketable. Actually, I did hear...
Just ask The Miz.
I did hear some whispers this past week about Cody possibly signing a WWE contract as a performer. Possibly, and maybe already has. And here's the thing. All I'm going to tell you is that for all intents and purposes, as far as I know from everything I've heard, Roderick Strong is signed to the WWE at this point, or agreed to sign with the WWE.
Okay. Totally okay with that.
I am too. He's finishing out his indie dates. He's working PWG. He's working all these places that Cody's working. These are all places and people that WWE trusts and has agreements with. That's all I'm saying. Do with it what you will.
conspiracy.
Just like, because, just like when Matt Hardy got fired for Edge sleeping with Lita. It's so unfair how they fired him, wasn't it, Matt? Wasn't it, Adam? It was really just unfair. The way they victimized Matt Hardy and forced him to run in through the crowd and attack Edge to get re-signed. It's crazy how they did that. Balls out insane. Luckily, the WWE brought him back instead of filing law charges against him for a civilian attacking a WWE contracted performer. He's just lucky he didn't go to jail because he would have been broken Matt Hardy even sooner. Broken in half from all the forced anal in jail.
Jesus Christ. Forced anal. All right.
That's our name for this week's show.
Oh no, it's not. I think I actually already have. I think I actually already have one lined up. So no need to worry about that.
Is it Weird Slanty Phones Part 2?
See, now you're just trying to get over old jokes.
No, that joke deserves to be over very.
You gotta live in the now, man. You can't live in the past. I was trying to think if it would be all right to release a T-shirt. Not that we've ever released a T-shirt or ever going to release a T-shirt because nobody fucking buy it. But on it's maybe like a dark gray T-shirt, and on the front you take like a Photoshop or whatever, and you just take a picture of a phone, like the emoji of the phone,
and
then you just cant it like 45 degrees, and then put that on a T-shirt.
Can we put an eggplant emoji on there too?
I was in Walmart today, which is a mistake in and of itself. But I was in Walmart today looking for something, and I was walking out because I didn't have what I wanted. And I walked past this row of T-shirts with emojis on them, and one of them was just a gray tank top with the poop on it. Why the fuck would you buy a poop emoji on a tank top?
I don't know.
And then I remembered I was at Walmart. So
let's ask Enzo Amore, who has the poop emoji on almost all of his wrestling gear. It's actually funny. My son watches all the pay-per-views and goes, "Oh my god, he's got the poop emoji on his pants."
That's the pants though. That makes sense. That's shit pants is what that is. But I just thought it was weird having it to buy. I'm gonna wear a gray tank top with a poop emoji on it. It's like the people who go to Spencer's and buy these shitty, awful, ridiculous shirts at Spencer's and think that's an acceptable thing to wear in public.
Keep in mind, now that they have the deal with China on WWE's programming, all we keep hearing about is PPTV.
No, she's dead. She's dead.
There's no deal. The country. But all we keep hearing about on WWE now is PPTV, which is a horrible name for a television program. I
can't remember if we mentioned it last week or not. I know that I didn't mention it personally. I do want to give John Cena props for learning Mandarin. And while not being fluent enough to give that speech at the press conference.
You want to know why that guy is the face of the company? There it is. Here's a
like
guy. I can be useful in a promotional capacity for this company if I take myself and put in the time to learn how to speak fucking Mandarin.
Mandarin Chinese.
While jetting around the country and hosting this TV show and that one and the ESPYs and Good Morning America and being on every Raw and every SmackDown and every reality show. And you want to know why John Cena is the face of that goddamn company. He has a drive and a work ethic like nobody else that's under contract to them. Period. End of story. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of guys at the top of that company, CM Punk was making the rounds this week, hyping his now official UFC debut, which has been official 3 or 4 times, but he keeps pulling out due to I'm assuming Adam's taking his pants off right now. Okay, there we go. Which has been making the round. So he's been making the rounds, and for all of you people chanting CM Punk at all these shows, I just like to point out when asked about Daniel Bryan's retirement and if he said something to the effect of he didn't know why Daniel Bryan would be upset about silly pro wrestling. So that guy that you're cheering for at the wrestling show you paid your hard-earned money to go to, that's what he thinks of you and what you're paying your money to watch. Said it before, I'll say it again. Fuck CM Punk. I hope he gets forced anal.
So what's he lined up for 203 now? I think it was
203. Yeah. Originally they thought it was going to be 202. which is the rematch between McGregor and Diaz. That card doesn't really need the additional hype, so I think they're moving them to 203, which is going to take place, I believe it was in Cleveland. Same card where Alistair Overeem, and here's the tie-in, it was the last guy to defeat Brock Lesnar and send him running back to the WWE. Overeem will be on that 203 card as well, defending his championship. So
yeah, I did like the part of that interview where he talked about if he ever does go back to pro wrestling, it'll be something untelevised, some indie show untelevised where he's wrestling one of his friends in a ninja outfit and nobody will know that it's him.
The guy has no fucking. Here's the thing, like, say what you want about John Cena, right? You can dislike John Cena's character all you want.
Said it a million times on the show. Got no issues with the guy.
The guy's
a hell of a guy.
Okay, here's my larger point. The guy hasn't really been the center of a WWE program in terms of the heavyweight championship or being the top guy on TV or on the pay-per-views in a very, 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 very long time. He had that one run with Seth Rollins for SummerSlam to hype those buy rates last year. But other than that, for the most part, he's been putting guys. He's been back for 2 matches. He's put over Seth Rollins and AJ Styles in both of those matches. He hasn't won a single match since he's been back. But then you look at the guy like CM Punk, who was, I think, 400 and some odd days world heavyweight champion. They kept the title on him and kept him at the top for over a full fucking calendar year. And the second it was someone else's turn to be at the top of that card, he turned into a petulant fucking child, took his ball, and went home because they wanted him to lose matches. In his silly fake pro wrestling, one of the main reasons, if you listen to that Colt Cabana podcast, that he was so pissed off was because he was losing matches to Brock Lesnar, to The Undertaker. Again, 400 days on top. And he left because he was pissed. Now, this is the guy you're cheering for. This is the guy you want to root for, you want to see back. This is the guy who you put in your emotional investment in, instead of the guy who's there 365 days a year, who puts over the other talent, who doesn't complain, who doesn't piss and whine and throw a hissy fit about not being at the top of the card. Just think that struck me as very, very striking, the difference between those two guys when I heard that podcast, or that interview, I should say.
Fair. Speaking of Seth Rollins, I took this note just in case Andy was on the show. If we'd done it tomorrow night,
but we can do it again tomorrow night if this one sucked.
I'm just gonna. I don't know. Will we start with depressing murder talk again?
That's up to Sal. Sal brought the depressing murder talk on the show.
I wanted to mention this. I'll tell Andy that he has to listen to this, at least this part at the 1 hour and 7 minute mark. Because Seth Rollins will appear at the Modern Woodman Park for Black and Brave Night on July 21st in Davenport. The Quad Cities River Bandits will play the Dayton Dragons at 7 p.m. It's named after the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, founded by Rollins and Merrick Brave in 2014. There will be wrestling matches before the game. So for our friends in Iowa, you might want to check that out. And somebody tell Andy to listen to 1 hour and 7 minutes into the show. Kogo Sean is on the side, says, "Hey, just got in. Any voicemails this week?" We did that way back at the beginning of the show, Sean. You're very late on the ball with those.
But we have had some good forced anal talk.
more than once, actually. Yeah. Somehow, it just keeps coming back to forced anal.
Doesn't it always, though?
Do you have any other notes that you want to cover before we wrap things up here?
Not from Monday Night Raw. I want to give a big credit to the Ring of Honor crew. They put on their Best of the World pay-per-view last Friday. Tremendous show. I've been one of those guys that I don't know, so for those that follow me on Facebook, they might have seen I'm one of those guys. I'm not really big into the death match stuff. I find it to be a way for, and don't get me wrong, there's some very talented wrestlers that do it because the money's very good. But there are also some guys that do it because they can't actually wrestle, and it's a way that they can still be in the business. I just find it unnecessary. I find it dangerous. I find it...
Yeah, most of those guys end up in the CZW section of every episode of Botchamania.
Right, and I find it dangerous, and I think it gives wrestling in general a bad name.
Agree.
In terms of public perception.
100% agree.
That said, for those of you who haven't seen it, if you go back and watch the match between Steve Corino and BJ Whitmer from this past Friday's Best in the World, there can be a place for ultra-violent matches when they have a storyline, when there's a build to it, when there's a reason for the violence other than the sake of fucking violence. The storyline was built over the course of over a year where BJ Whitmer has been abusing and humiliating Steve Corino's son, and finally it all came to a head, and you knew it was going to be a bloody fucking match when Steve Corino came out with his hair dyed blonde and wearing head-to-toe white. At that point, I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
But they put on a match that was believable, that was legitimate, that had purpose, had meaning, that was still had the ultra violent aspect to it, and that's how it should be done if you're going to do that. And it should be done very rarely to make it stand out, to make it have an impact.
Every time you hit your desk, your camera goes slightly to the left.
I thought it was just from when I did my cane bit. But yeah, also Jay Lethal and Jay Briscoe had 1 year later their title rematch.
Yeah.
Another tremendous match. Like these two, just tremendous in the ring together. Jay Lethal to me has got to be signed by the WWE at some point, and
he's an amazing worker,
unbelievable. And that's I think where you see the Daniel Bryans and AJ Styles of the world opening doors for guys like Jay Lethal.
100%.
Maybe a few years ago would have been looked at as too small to be a big player in the WWE.
Bring him in, put him with Charlotte. He can do his Ric Flair impression, and instead of Ric Flair, we've got.
I pop for that video every single time I see it. I don't care. But yeah, the other day we talked a couple weeks ago about the possibility of Moose coming in. Apparently, from what I've heard this week, they're cooled down on Moose. They're not. It's not actually the fait accompli that he's showing up that it once appeared to be.
Okay.
Roderick Strong does appear to be on his way to the WWE.
Fingers crossed.
And I heard a weird rumor that during the Cruiserweight Classic tapings, Teddy Hart was hanging out backstage.
I did hear that as well.
Along with his cat. He brought his cat to the tapings. I don't know what it is with that family and cats, but yeah, so I don't know if that means anything, but Teddy Hart, God,
they all need cats just in case they get squirrels.
There you go. See, that's perfect. Teddy Hart, amazing guy in the ring, and if he could ever get his goddamn head screwed on straight,
right,
the guy would be a huge star.
But thanks to him not having his head screwed on straight, we did get Tyson Kidd for a while. So
that's true. And I would, God forbid we never see Tyson again, which is possible at this point. I haven't heard
very sad, but definitely possible.
Obviously, you want him to live a long, healthy life. So if it's too dangerous for him to get back in the ring, then stay out of the ring.
Let me go back to this because I actually have a tweet to him that I sent. He posted a thing on Twitter. I should tag near the mic. That works better. He posted a picture. This was 4 days ago. So 1 year ago today, I had C1, C2 spinal fusion. I'm grateful for a second chance at life. Posted a picture of himself in the hospital and a picture of himself with Natty.
Mm-hmm.
And we're grateful too. I'm going to say it on the show here. We're grateful as well. Even if he never comes back, it was fun to watch while it lasted, and he is missed.
And Natty posted some pictures of herself in a bikini today, and I would be grateful for a second chance at life after seeing those pictures myself. So that's pretty much my Ring of Honor bit. In terms of TNA, not a whole lot going on this week. Mike Bennett, they're doing a whole gimmick where Mike Bennett wants the title shot that comes from being the cruiserweight. I'm sorry, not the cruiserweight, the X Division champion.
Yes, I did forget to mention that last week. Congratulations, Mike Bennett, on winning the X Division championship.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, he's already lost it in real life. But yeah, they're doing a whole angle where he wants to be the one that gets the title shot when he cashes in what Austin Aries created as Option C at the Destination X pay-per-view. Whoever is the X Division champion has the right to cash it in for a heavyweight title contract. She's been anchoring for that. I don't know if they're going to end up finding a way to get him into that match, and this is a way to kind of make him the heavyweight champion. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm a big Mike Bennett fan.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you be?
But yeah, and if you don't follow him and Maria on Instagram, they post some really funny shit together. So that's worth a look. But other than that, I'm more EC3 stuff. He's just a huge star down there. Billy Corrigan apparently really shops in the Pitbull section of whatever store he buys his stuff from. But the Pitbull style suits with the sunglasses indoors and a bald head, and
Yeah.
he just can't pull it off because he looks like it's hard to describe. He looks kind of like that old guy at the pool. He just kind of waddles around a little bit, like he's fat, but he's got a shirt on and it doesn't quite show that much. I don't know, weird dynamic with Billy Corgan. I don't quite get, but it just doesn't. He just looks odd to me. I don't know. Can't describe it, but
He's always looked odd though.
He's apparently turning himself into some sort of heel authority figure to offset Dixie Carter because, TNA with those cutting-edge storylines of a heel authority figure. But that's a thing that's happening there. Lucha Underground getting prepped and revved up for Ultima Lucha 2, which if you watched Ultima Lucha 1 last year, you understand is their biggest show of the year, essentially their version of WrestleMania on free TV. Going to be headlined by Pentagon versus Matanza Cueto. Supposed to be an ultra-violent match, so that's one you're going to want to see as well. Rey Mysterio and Prince Puma going to face off, or Ricochet, as it were, going to face off at Ultima Lucha 2. And from everything I've read from people who were there, that's a match that's worth the price of admission alone. So if you don't watch any any Lucha Underground, that match alone is worth watching.
Yeah, I don't think I get that channel.
They have a YouTube channel where they put pretty much all their shit up. So it might be worth checking that. I think it's the El Rey channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking that one out. And NXT, of course, the big news coming out of NXT for a while, we all thought we were heading towards this Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura match at the TakeOver at SummerSlam. Apparently not. The match was actually taped for 2 weeks from now's episode of NXT.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's going to happen on NXT. Apparently it turns into a number one contenders match. So we're going to end up at Brooklyn, kind of where I was figuring we were going to end up at Brooklyn. Not to spoil too much. Also, they taped coming up in the next couple of weeks, the American Alpha 2 out of 3 falls with the Revival, given some of their previous matches. I think that's going to be a phenomenal one to watch.
Yep, definitely.
Exciting big things happening in NXT, of course. The big question surrounding NXT, what happens with the draft? How does that affect that roster? And I was thinking about this week as I was driving around in my car, because, I think a lot about this stuff while I'm driving around in my car. But, everyone's talking about how when they do this draft, you got to bring up Bayley and Samoa Joe and Finn Balor and blah, blah, blah. Here's my concern with doing that. And it basically boils down to what happened with the women when you called them up from NXT. I think when you're bringing up these guys from NXT, if you want to prime them for success, it needs to be special and unique and individual when they get called up, not as part of this group that comes up from NXT. You need Finn Balor to make an impact on his debut. He needs to help John Cena beat up AJ Styles in the club, or he needs to do something. The lights need to go out. The demon needs to show up. Finn Balor's debut can't be, Stephanie McMahon, draft Finn Balor to Raw. Yeah. Like, that can't be it. So they need to be very careful with who they bring up in this draft and how they do it. Now, you can bring them up post-draft, treat them like free agent signees for the COOs, if you will.
Sure.
That would be fine.
Sure.
But I think you run the risk of making them feel very ordinary if, let's say, for the sake of argument, Samoa Joe gets drafted number 18 to Raw. It doesn't feel special. He doesn't feel like a big-time player if you're not taking until 18.
Right.
So I think for the sake of keeping these guys special and fresh, they need to be very careful how they do that.
Okay.
Oh, and I worked a wrestling show at Fenway Park.
Yes.
Not sure if you'd heard about that.
Yeah. Do me a favor and vamp for a little bit. I have to step away for a moment, and then we'll end the show when I come back, and I'll just cut this whole part out.
Okay, well, then I don't really need to vamp if we're going to cut the whole part out, except I know you well enough to know that you're not going to cut this part out. You're going to make me sound like a dick and just leave me rambling on here. So I'm not going to play your games. I am not going to sit here and ramble so that you can make me look like a moron. It's bad enough you talked me into that whole bit with Matt Hardy. But in any event, yes. So I think we've pretty much covered everything that I had mentioned. I would be curious to hear what other people think in regards to these NXT call-ups and how they should handle them. So Sal, Tommy, anybody else that's listening that has an opinion on these NXT call-ups and how they should be introduced or how they will be introduced or ideas of what may happen with those, it would be worth checking that out, or worth calling into our voicemail line at 161-RUNDOWN-7 and leaving us a voicemail just telling us what you think in regards to that. We had a little bit of controversy in the Questionable Endeavors Network this week, as it came to light that one Mr. Vince Russo is doing a Raw Attitude Show review, very similar, strikingly similar to the Raw Attitude podcast, hosted by Henry Hugepex, the suplex throwing human duplex, close personal friend of the Rundown. So I believe Henry is seeking legal action against Mr. Russo as a result of that clear violation. But in all honesty, if you're not subscribed, that show notwithstanding, Vince Russo does do some great interviews on his podcast channel. Recently listened to an interview with Nick Aldis, the former guy known as Magnus in TNA, where he really rips the shit out of TNA and some of his stuff that happened there. Also, if you're interested in other podcasts, MLW has this week Alex Greenfeld, former writer for WWE, head writer for SmackDown, I believe, did a sit down with Batista, where Batista opens up quite a bit about his last run in WWE and the issues with the Daniel Bryan situation and his feud with the Shield and all that stuff. Very, very interesting stories out of Dave Batista there, who I'm not a huge fan of for a lot of different reasons, but it was definitely gave you a little bit behind the curtain perspective. So I found that very interesting. And short of that, I'm running out of stuff to vamp about, so I hope Adam's piss gets finished soon, unless he pissed so hard before the show he had to do number 2. I don't know. Oh, here he comes. Look at that. There he is. Did you wipe all the way?
Haha. Very funny. Okay, let me get a clean edit point here. And on that green monster of a note, that does it for the rundown for this Wednesday, June 29th, 2016. 311 days since the New Day won the WWE Tag Team Championship.
And still not even close to demolition.
No. For a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial, go to audibletrial.com/rundown. Make us a little bit of cash that way. Lucky Pro Wrestling presents Star Clash 3 at the Elks Lodge in Hudson, Massachusetts on Saturday, July 16th. Vern Vicala, we talked about him earlier, defends his LSW Heavyweight Championship against the Platinum Playboy Randy Shawn for the first time ever in a ladder match.
I saw a pull-apart those guys had recently, and they apparently got quite heated backstage between the two of them.
Yes, that was on Saturday.
There you go.
Randy Shawn nearly beat the shit out of me to get my microphone.
It reminded me a lot of the Undertaker Brock Lesnar pull-apart. It was just insanity backstage.
Yeah. Atlantic Pro Wrestling returns Sunday, July 31st for a free show during Newburyport Old Yankee Homecoming, and Liberty State's off for the summer, returning in October probably at the John McCarthy Elementary School in Peabody, Massachusetts. Jason, do you have anything to plug?
Of course, the Yankee Homecoming show you mentioned for APW going to be headlined by the rematch New England's been waiting to see, the Kingpin Brian Malonis one-on-one for the APW Championship with the man who kicked him out of another promotion. That would be Ring of Honor superstar Donovan Dijak. That's going to be a hell of a match. And I have it on good authority that the commissioner of APW, who I hear is a strikingly good-looking young man, has another announcement coming very soon in regards to Yankee Homecoming and one Brian Malonis.
Interesting. Things coming down for the three kings of New England Pro Wrestling. What else we got? Stump Trivia every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. at the Port Tavern in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Follow us on Twitter at Rundown Podcast. Send us an email to rundownwrestling@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail like Sal does, or
whoever that other guy was,
Sam Elliott, or my grandma at 617-863-6967.
Grandma, can you do it while you're not taking a shit next time, please?
61 Rundown 7.
Either that or she was having a toilet baby. I don't know.
Like us on Facebook, tell your parents and your grandparents to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/rundownwrestling. Watch archived episodes at youtube.com/rundownpodcast. Circle me on Google Plus at google.com/plus Adam Rundown host. To make a donation of the monetary...
Friendster page?
I don't have a MySpace either.
Because that's about as useful as a Google Circles.
Yeah, pretty much. geocities.com/marketplace/ angelfire.edu.gov. To make a donation of the monetary variety, go to paypal.me/rundownwrestling and type in an amount. It's $10 a month for me to host this. If you want to help out with that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yes, he would. And he will provide services for that money.
This is a service. This right here, this is a service. We provide free entertainment.
So Adam, for what Adam just said, is he's willing to service everyone for free. That's what you said, man.
Chasing Distant Horizons at tinyurl.com/distant horizons. If you like poetry, help Andy make a little bit of money on the side.
For your asshole.
And like all the podcasts in the Questionable Endeavor Network, Shadowvane at shadowvane.net, patreon.com/shadowvane, the Geek and Gamer Guild on iTunes and Stitcher, Tooning Japanese on iTunes and Stitcher, and the Raw Attitude Podcast hosted by our friend Henry Hugepex, the suplex throwing human duplex,
who is having quite a beef with Vince Russo at the moment.
Yeah, Vince Russo totally stole his idea for a podcast.
Except Vince Russo's on episode 60-something, and Henry's on 17 or 16.
That uncreative bastard. Shut up.
Yeah.
Speaking of episode 16, that came out recently. Episode 17. The next episode is going to be the episode where Raw finally overtakes Nitro in the ratings after, what was it, 84 weeks? Something ridiculous like that.
And I hear Henry's got something special lined up for that episode.
We are attempting. Henry is attempting to basically, just like we did a couple weeks ago with the 250th episode here, attempting to get all of the Questionable Endeavor Network team together for that very special episode of the Raw Attitude Podcast. So
but I have it on good authority. Henry will not be asking one fucking video game question to anybody. So
he did ask me if it was possible for him to just take that trivia game from the 250th episode and post that as a little mini bonus ep of the Raw Attitude Podcast. I said that's okay. So that might be appearing if you want to listen to that again and hear my amazing victory, because I am the king of trivia in the Questionable Endeavor Network. Speaking of which, follow that at Quest End Network and visit online at questendnetwork.com.
Just remember, Adam, according to the handbook, official handbook G1 Article 6-5C, the trivia champ is required to defend his title every 30 days or risk being stripped.
Well, we'll have to get more people on the show more frequently, and so that
Demon fucking Kane is coming for your trivia championship, bitch.
Apparently, at some point, someone is supposed to write a game so that Raccoon Reigns can challenge me, since Raccoon Reigns hosted the trivia challenge in the 250th episode. I welcome all comers. I will accept any wrestling trivia challenge on this program. So. But yes, at Quest End Network on Twitter and Quest.
We need more Sal trivia. Tell Sal to get on the trivia part. I used to do really well on his trivia.
QuestEndNetwork.com. Search for us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podomatic under the Rundown Wrestling Podcast. Absolutely free to listen to each and every week. If you want to leave us a review on iTunes, that would be great, because that helps more people find us. If you leave a text review, we'll read your name in your text review at the end of a future episode.
But make sure you leave a 5-star review and not a 2-star review, because Adam will lose his shit.
It was a 3-star review, and it's the only one we've got that's not a 5-star review. And whoever that person is, I hate you.
He hopes you get forced anal.
I hate every fiber of your being.
Go ahead, say it. Say it. You know you want to. Say it in that creepy voice.
I hope you get forced anal.
Oh, now I finished. All right, good.
Thanks to Tegan Brown for the logo. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to co-ghost Sean on the side. Thanks to Jason.
Fuck Ashley Lynn, you bitch.
Breaking up, ruining families.
Left and right.
Jesus.
I hope she gets forced anal. Unless that's why she broke up the family. I don't
Sensing
know.
a theme here. And thanks to I Fight Dragons at ifightdragons.com for the theme song. Next week, God knows.
Next week, we'll
So-
talk about another utterly predictable Monday Night Raw.
Next week, Jason will say forced anal 6 more times.
No, I'll come up with something completely different by then.
And as always, Jacob, good night and good luck. Bree, Zong, go fuck yourself.
Are you talking to me when you say that? Or because you're looking kind of right at me, so I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're just talking to everyone in general.
That's for me to know and you to find out.
Sort of like forced anal.
Take care, Bulby faces. Stop recording.
Now, did you reinstall your fucking Skype yet?
No,
Motherfucker.
I have to uninstall it first, and I haven't gotten around to that yet because I don't have time to do things that aren't pre-scheduled. Noise reduction, that's what I want. Welcome to the post show, everybody.
This is where we talk about non-forced anal.
This is where we read the Google Voice transcripts of the voicemails, including the one from my grandmother.
Can we just talk about how the Red Sox suck instead? Can we just at least agree to not read the Sam Elliott one? Because
But it might have some good stuff in it. You don't know. Hello,
does it kind
Adam.
of have "We Got Weed" on it? Because other than that,
Hello, Adam. It's your grandmother, dear Justin, nice young man. Adam, when you're done with your computer television show, okay, mind picking up a gallon of bread and a loaf of milk? Thank you, dear. Also, I was just watching Monday Night Raw, and I have to say that Settle never said, "Oh, my stars," in artist. In artist, his maybe something, she has something. I haven't felt since your grandfather. Let's just say steerings. But anyway, I'll let you get back to your propane discourse, and I'm going to continue doing what I was doing before you called me. Thank you, dear. Propane discourse is up there. Way up, Cincinnati.
4 out of 10.
They were just fill it up, fill it alone until you about fill another name of being Ambrose. At least that was the handle his loving parents gave him. But you never had much use for himself, Mr. Ambrose. You called himself, but dude, nothing that's named itself fire. I come from the bean. There was a lot about the new that didn't make a whole lot of sense. We mentioned it because sometimes there's a man. I'll see here, oh, cuz what's the hero? But sometimes there's a man, and I'm talking about the dude here. Sometimes there's a man as well, as a man first island flex if it's right in there, and that's the dude in Cincinnati. And even though he's a crazy man, has a dude was most certainly that quite possibly the craziest man in the WWE, which would put it in the running perk, crazy as worldwide. And sometimes there's a man, sometimes there's a man. Lost my train of thought here, but all I don't introduce them enough. He's actually not that great.
Can we make a request that next week in the voicemail somebody use the phrase "forced anal" just to see what Google Translate comes up with?
I had all of these different topics I wanted to talk about involving a role last night, whether it be sent opening promo. Sorry, that's a question. Sent opening promo? Or the thread brought the night of teasing the addition of John Cena and AJ Styles into the triple threat match, Pat Battleground. And I'm sure you guys will touch on those things. But what I really wanted to talk about was the recent interview given by Sandra Till-Salone on Tacos Jericho.
And there it is.
Sandra is the sister of Nancy Bean Locked, and she described a relationship with Chris, talked about how he wasn't a person and what kind of happened to him, and a lot of different things that you talked about, involving the almost infinite number of people that he had lost leading up Daddy's Dead.
Jesus Christ.
So what it didn't start with at 8 almost ended. Whatever friends in the business that he had that seem passed away, she talked about a constant state of bereavement. It gets bereavement right. And then obviously, as you said, hit in the hardest, the self-medicate in that Hurt himself and Nancy were doing to try to cope and deal with life in general. And maybe it wasn't just a clear-cut steroids issue. Maybe it wasn't just a concussion issue if you haven't listened to it. I definitely check it out. But She also talked about the murders and cells and specifically what he had done to take his own life, and also, kind of parallel that with the fact that he had referenced that he felt like the business was choking it, and that, his suicide in the manner in which she did it was Pearl Attic. Really tough thing, and yeah, a lot of us that's around and joke about it because, that's what we do, but it's something you guys are really talk about, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Speaking of which, have you talked to Sal since he left that voicemail? Because it really sounds like you might need to take away his shoelaces. Maybe get him a hug or something.
Where the fuck did that go?
Tacos Jericho.
Tacos Jericho. That's what it was. All right. That's it for this week.
Are we done? Because I was just about to take my pants off.
Whoa, I'm clicking the button now.
I can